Many draft analysts, I don't know if you've seen this time, but I'm always in the news watching film on prospects, watching people talk about the prospects, just seeing where the owners and GMs and the staff's heads are when it comes to the draft to see who they might possibly take in the first round. But a lot of people are now having Shedeur Sanders fall from the top 3, the top 5. Shedeur falling would not surprise me. Nate thinks Shedeur is the best quarterback in this draft class. I disagree. We had that conversation. I don't think Shedeur is 1 or 2 in my draft this year. It's just about the way I've witnessed it. He has great poise and accuracy. He's great in the pocket, but the dude cannot read a defense whatsoever. And he never throws the ball where his receivers are going. He always just throws it right where they're at. I mean, it's just, and that's why Travis Hunter was so great, because he could get open and there was always a ball. Shedeur didn't have to anticipate where he was going. He could just stand still in the end zone. I mean, a lot of passes, if you go back and watch his film, you will see Travis Hunter standing in the end zone like this and a pass thrown to him. It's never Travis Hunter on the run throwing it to him. Now, a lot of times that did happen, but I'm just like, there's a lot of pros and cons to any prospect. So if you are a team that's willing to take a look at him and say, hey, look, he's got great accuracy, he's got great poise when he's in the pocket. A lot of people like to argue, oh, he was the most sacked quarterback in 2023 and then one of the tops in 2024. In 2023, I'll give it to you. His O-lineman wasn't that great. But this past year, we cannot keep blaming the O-line. We can't keep giving that narrative. His dad, Coach Prime, went out and got the best transfers he could possibly ask for in Colorado to fill that O-line. It is Shedeur's fault because an NFL O-lineman could not stop college players for more than 10 seconds. He would sit there and sit there and sit there because his first read is never right. The dude can't read a defense. He would cause him to scramble all around the football field behind that O-line. How long do you want the dang O-line to hold for without causing a penalty? I mean, you can't sit there and expect somebody to be better in sacks when it's not the O-line's fault. I mean, why are we sitting here? I know the O-line is the big forefront for not causing sacks. But when you run out the pocket, there's only so much the O-line can do. When you sit there and wait for as long as you do before throwing the ball, there's only so much the O-line can do. Before we get into where we think Shedeur will fall to, do you have anything you see in Shedeur, what you like about him? I know you're big on Shedeur. What do you like about him? What do you see in him? Just tell me your overall thoughts for him as a prospect.
I think he's very talented. Same with his teammate, almost you want to say his brother in Travis Hunter, but that's for another discussion. Talking about Shedeur right now, I think he's very talented. I think his athleticism is incredible. I think he throws a good ball. And the pocket thing, you make a good point. I mean, yeah, he's scrambled a lot when he hasn't had to. And that's kind of affected. You're right. You can only do so much when you scramble out of the pocket. Protection doesn't always break down. Just sometimes he thinks he has to get out and run to be able to make a play and get outside the pocket to make a play. That's going to be an issue at the next level. You need to be able to stay in the pocket, at least as long as you can. And if he can learn to do that, then his athleticism is going to take him a very long way, and he could have a very special career. I think a majority for why he's, and he had a great year. We're not here to discredit any. I'm sure, Connor, you're not discrediting any of what he did last year. He's in the Heisman race, obviously. So, I mean, he's not a bad quarterback at all. There's just he's got to play like a next level quarterback. He's got to play like an NFL quarterback. He's got to be able to stay in the pocket and stay, not stay as aggressive when it comes out to rolling out. He's got to be able to stay conservative in the pocket and stay locked down and make sure he's able to, obviously you got to read a defense at the next level. Your legs are not going to only take you, so many places. You look back at like Johnny Manziel, and I'm not comparing, Johnny Manziel and Shedeur Sanders. They were both incredible quarterbacks in college, but you look back at Johnny Manziel, and we talk about Shedeur's athleticism. Well, Johnny had his athleticism and maybe more so. And what does he do when he gets in the league? And now it's a different conversation, but he didn't he didn't watch film. He didn't do anything. There's plenty of documented stuff saying that he didn't watch film at all and did nothing really to prepare for ball games and prepare to be an NFL quarterback. And that's why his talent got spoiled. Now, I think Shedeur he's already got his dad, right? That was it's an NFL vet. And it's one of the greatest, seriously, one of the greatest athletes in all of sports history, and is one of the greatest. Was a fantastic defensive back, but he's got that pro experience. So there's a lot of talk with him and his dad have just been really pushy about where he wants to go. But I think ultimately, wherever he gets drafted, right, I think he will be able to profit or he'll be able to get better because I think his dad can help him out with kind of maturing a little bit. And, but that's the main thing is he's just going to have to mature and realize, getting into the big leagues now, you got to settle in, got to do the right things. I think though, if he can settle in, be able to, do the small things as an NFL quarterback, be able to read a defense. That might sound like it's a big thing, but it can be fairly simple. And nobody, people might not realize that, but it can be very simple to, just read what a defense has to offer. And if you put the work in and watching film, it does not take very long to, maybe figure that out. So, his athleticism, if he can combat that with being able to understand defenses and be locked down in the pocket and not be so ready to go to run outside of the pocket, if he can figure that out, I think he could be a fantastic quarterback. And to me, I think he has the most potential out of any quarterback in this draft.
And you talk about his dad. His dad is probably worst case scenario for a defender in the NFL. I mean, his dad did it all. So
yeah,
there's certain things his dad can teach him, but there's certain things he can't. His dad was never a QB. He can't tell him to think like a QB. He can tell him how to think like how a defensive back reads a QB, but he can't tell him the other way around, how a QB reads. And maybe he can, but there's a limit where Deion's knowledge stops. So you get into the conversation of what team is he going to go to that will take a chance? You say he's got the highest ceiling of any quarterback in this draft class, correct?
Yeah.
What team is going to look at that and say, hey, I want to fix Shedeur's maybe not being able to read. His first read's always wrong. I want to be able to find his strengths, good poise. Great. If he can sit in the pocket, he's super accurate. He's good on the run too. But if he can just stay in the pocket and not allow his legs to just make the first decision, a team might look at that and it might be golden for them. So let's talk about those teams that might look at Shedeur as the highest ceiling, a piece of candy they want in their football team. We talked about it before the show, and it was pretty much clear when I talked about Cam Moore's pro day the other day. And we discussed, I think Nate was on the show, on it's going to be a pretty hefty package for somebody to trade up for the first overall pick because Cam Moore balled out that so well during his pro day. The Titans are probably going to draft him at number 1. So where does that go? You got to the Cleveland Browns pick. Okay. At this point, you have Travis Hunter, probably the best prospect graded in this draft. Abdul Carter. And then you have Shedeur Sanders. In my mind, you could go Abdul Carter. You could go 3 ways here. whichever way you want. But if we break it down, I don't think you go defense. I think you most definitely have to go offense if you are the Cleveland Browns. You go defense, you have so much to work on offense, and you will procrastinate drafting offense, and it will be just as bad as it was for you last year. There is no return in sight for Deshaun Watson, your starting quarterback. And let's keep in mind what the Browns owner said about Deshaun Watson while he's still in the organization. We took a big swing and missed. You don't say that to a player that is still in your organization.
Nope.
How long is Deshaun Watson going to be a Brown? It could be soon. If you're already talking about him like that, it could be tomorrow. Not really, because he's injured. When he gets off injury list, it could be till then. In my mind, you have one other quarterback in your depth chart. Small hands Kenny Pickett. I call him that every breakdown show. I refer to him. You have to have two quarterbacks going into a game. You are most definitely drafting one this draft. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. You have to draft a quarterback this draft class. If you do not, it will be detrimental for your organization, more so than it already is. You might take a swing on a rookie QB, but it won't be as bad of a swing you took with Deshaun Watson. So let's look at why the Browns took Kenny Pickett. Why did they trade for Kenny Pickett? Because they had someone promising like Dorian Thompson-Robinson, right? They traded him and a pick for Kenny Pickett. The Cleveland Browns are wanting somebody with starting experience, the years he started on Pittsburgh, somebody that could come in and just play for him as a placeholder. Okay? Keep in mind, placeholder. Kenny Pickett is not your long-term solution at quarterback. There's no way. At number 2, and I might be alluding to April 22nd if you will join us, Shedeur Sanders is drafted to the Cleveland Browns. This is what makes the most sense to me. All these analysts say he's fallen. Mel Kiper says he's fallen to 9, which we'll get to that. Shedeur at 2 is the most sense to me. You say he has the highest ceiling. If I'm the Cleveland Browns, I am trying at every expense to unlock that. I want that highest ceiling, Shedeur. If I can teach him to read, if I can teach him to make quick decisions and not the wrong ones, he might be my long-term quarterback. Because right now you don't have it. And you haven't had it. Ty, at number 2, what's your thoughts of Shedeur Sanders becoming a Cleveland Brown?
He definitely should become a Cleveland Brown. I don't see why they would go anywhere else. They could go, like you mentioned, Abdul Carter. They could go, the 1-2 offense, defense, Travis Hunter. But it just makes no sense. You don't have a quarterback, right? Kenny Pickett, unless something unprecedented happens in his football career to where he becomes a fantastic quarterback and plays like he hasn't played before in the NFL, he's not, like you said, he's not your long-term guy. And Deshaun Watson, he's injured. Obviously their owner already said something about him like that. That's fine. His owner saying that that's kind of funny because that's the real truth. I mean, you can't really say that about a player that's still in your organization, but that's the real truth. They took a swing and they missed big time. They missed big time. I mean, it's almost like, they missed big time on him. So yeah, you have to draft a quarterback because, like I said, Kenny Pickett, unless something major happens, no. He's not going to be your guy. Deshaun Watson, even if he comes back, fairly all right from injury, I think he's way past his prime now. The great years that he had in Houston before all that scandal stuff happened with him. I'm not even going to go into that, but before the years in Houston, he's way past those years. So you have to go. I think you have to go Shedeur. The only other route you would go would still be at quarterback. And if you believe that Jackson Dart is going to be better, then you would go Jackson Dart. But that would be the only other way I think you could go would be Jackson Dart. But to me, what's smart is Shedeur is what I said. I think he has the best ceiling, the highest ceiling out of any quarterback in this draft. I think you have to go Shedeur. If the Titans go Cam Ward, I think it's automatic you go Shedeur. So I completely agree with you. I don't really understand why they wouldn't go with Shedeur Sanders, or even if they somehow passed up on him, I don't see why they would draft any other quarterback like Jackson Dart or somebody else.
A lot of analysts have Abdul Carter at 2, which wouldn't be a terrible pick, but it's not the best pick in my opinion. You have to go offense. But let's say they decide to go offense, but they go a different route. They take someone like Travis Hunter, which is my second likely scenario. Best prospect in this draft. You take Travis Hunter, okay? Then it leaves number 3, the Giants. And then you're like, do we take Shedeur? You have Russell Wilson on a 1-year deal. You have Jameis Winston on a 2-year deal. You have Tommy DeVito on a 1-year deal. You don't have long-term solutions either at quarterback. I have spent hours watching and reading New York Giants. I'm not a Giants fan, but I've been watching New York Giants talk, what their owners and GMs think, for hours just to decide who will go at 3 if this scenario is possible. And I'm going to make a take right here, and I think Ty agrees with me on this. If Shedeur Sanders was available at number 3, the New York Giants would simply pass on him. You would not take Shedeur at 3 if he was available. It won't happen. It will not happen based on everything I've read and came up with. And trust me, I have spent a long time looking at number 3. Shedeur does not go 3. It doesn't make sense for me. There's just bigger needs, and you don't go Shedeur at 3.
I'll talk about it just for a second. Yeah, I don't think you would go Shedeur at 3, especially with signing. Well, they just signed Russ and they just signed Jameis, right? Shout out Jameis. That's the jersey you're wearing right now, by the way, for anybody that didn't know.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you just signed those two. I think you're buying yourself a year until maybe next year or something like that, or maybe 2 years. There's a guy that you already have looked at for the longer future, and maybe you would like. But yeah, I don't think the Giants would go Shedeur right there. I don't think they would go quarterback right there. But I will say the odds wouldn't agree with either of us. So the DraftKings odds to draft Shedeur Sanders has the Giants at number 2 to draft Shedeur at plus 350. Now I'll tell you the rest of that list a little bit later. I'll tell the audience about that a little bit later. but I will say the odds would say that they would be the second most inclined to draft Shedeur. So that's something interesting to watch or to think about with right there. But just us two, no, I agree with you.
The Browns are 3 though, right?
Yes, the Browns are 3 at plus 425. I'm looking at right here, plus 425.
So the odds are against us, Ty.
At least for the Giants, yeah. At least for the Giants situation. But I agree with you. I just don't think the Giants would draft a quarterback there. I think with signing those 2 guys, they bought themselves some time.
So then we keep going until we get to who Mel Kiper thinks Shedeur Sanders is going to. So Patriots, Jaguars, Raiders, that's your 4th, 5th, and 6th overall picks. They won't draft a quarterback. They've gotten their franchise guy to pretty good deals, unless you're the Patriots who just drafted Drake May last year. And then we get to an interesting scenario. Number 7. You just signed Justin Fields to a 2-year, $40 million deal this past offseason. You have Tyrod Taylor in the depth chart as like a veteran presence to help out Justin Fields, maybe progress, because he's still pretty young. He still can be progressed. And we saw that with somebody similar, maybe like a Sam Darnold in Minnesota. Dude could be considered veteran-like, but he still learned a lot in his tenure there, in his stop there. and now he made some money going to Seattle. So, what do you think about the possibility of Shedeur sneaking in at number 7 to the Jets?
I think that could most definitely happen if he somehow slips all the way to 7. You know, what else would the Jets? I mean, I think it could happen. I really the Justin Fields thing is just I don't know. I'm not. I mean, we had Justin Fields preseason last year was practicing returning kicks for Pittsburgh. I mean, so obviously I don't know that Pittsburgh saw too much in him, and I don't know that I really see too much in him. I mean, I understand maybe Tyrod Taylor can help him out. I don't know if it's going to work out for him. But, you pay him, I mean, 2 years, $40 million is a pretty solid amount of money to pay a dude that really hasn't done as much as he would as one would have liked in the NFL. So, you look at that and you can kind of think, well, hey, I guess they're probably going to stick to Justin Fields. I think it would be perfect for him to pull the trigger on Sanders right there. But, I will say, offensive tackle would probably be their move if they didn't go Shedeur Sanders. And, something with that Field struggled with in Chicago was he was running for his life, right? So maybe they try and take the chance to, draft an offensive lineman right there and help him out. And that way you can kind of try and solidify your line with with Tyrod Taylor. Maybe he can help him out. And Justin Fields has a lot of talent for sure, and he's been in the league for a little bit, so I'm sure he's understands how the NFL works and how to read defenses and stuff like that. It just hadn't quite worked out for him. So if they really believe in Justin Fields, and I would go. I see no reason to draft Shedeur Sanders. Just me. I don't find myself believing in Justin Fields as much, so I would take Shedeur Sanders right there. But just me, I would take Shedeur. But I think the Jets will probably be more inclined to take an offensive lineman in that situation.
So we keep going, and at 8, that's your Carolina Panthers, and they have the guy they think is going to take them to the promised land, Bryce Young. We'll see how that pans out. So they're not going to take a quarterback at 8. It'd be dumb if they did. And then you get to Mel Kiper's take. Originally, he had Jackson Dart going number 9 to the Saints, and I would have thrown up. I would have probably spooned my eyes out and passed out at the same time. And then now we get Shedeur at number 9. It's great, right? We get our quarterback of the future. We finally get a guy that can bring the New Orleans Saints back to the New Orleans Saints. No. I'm going to tell you that. I have a big problem if Shedeur. I told you I'd pass out and throw up and do all sorts of things if Jackson Dart got drafted at 9. I think Jackson Dart's a better prospect than Shedeur is. And I've been pretty spot on with quarterbacks these past couple of years. Now, Shedeur has a chance to be great, but not on the New Orleans Saints. Heck no. The last time we've had a good quarterback was a dude we took without a left shoulder, and he ended up just being great. So, you don't take Shedeur at 9. I have a big problem with this. Some people don't. Okay? There are more pressing needs for your team at number 9. And we're going to get to, in just a little bit, who the Saints will draft at number 9. But right now, it's just Shedeur at 9.
Mm-hmm.
You don't draft Shedeur at 9. There is no way. Contractually, it makes no sense whatsoever. You just put back Derek Carr's contract a little bit more so that you could keep him for that much longer. So you're going to keep Derek Carr. Spencer Rattler. All the good things Kellen Moore has to say about Spencer Rattler. We know that there is light at the end of the tunnel for him in a New Orleans Saints uniform. Whether that's after Derek Carr, whether that's him competing for a starting spot after Derek Carr, we'll have to see what happens. But Spencer Rattler will not be competing against Shedeur Sanders. Because if you draft Shedeur Sanders, it might be a big mistake. If you're going to take a risk on somebody, take a risk on somebody you need. because Shedeur Sanders isn't going to fix your problems in New Orleans.
Yeah, I I wouldn't be as angry as you are with this. I don't think we should draft a quarterback at all. Not Jackson Dart, not Shedeur Sanders, not anybody. At least in the first round. Um, I don't see how that would make any sense for us. But with Shedeur, I've said that he's got the best, the highest ceiling. I wouldn't be as upset, at least from the fact that we just got, I think, who's going to be a really good quarterback. But like you said, I think we have more pressing needs right now, and I think we can be, we can buy ourselves some time until we get out of the crap that we're in with Derek Carr, and but so the Derek Carr stuff, yeah, get out of the crap with him. But I think Spencer Rattler's got a really good future with us. I mean, you go back and watch, right, some of the games last year that he played in. I like to go back to the Green Bay game. And a lot of people will be like, oh, you got shut out for the first time. I think that was since 2003. How could he have ever looked good in that game? I mean, he was playing with Walmart employees that game. I mean, who was it? His starting receiver was what? Mason Tipton. His starting running back was, I believe, it was probably Kendre Miller because Kamara was out. So, he didn't have anybody. And I thought he put some really good tape out. I thought he looked really good against Green Bay. And I thought, at times, definitely too, in the preseason, I thought he looked pretty good in the preseason. So I'm not all out on, and I don't know that a lot of Saints fans are all out on Spencer Rattler either. I think he's got a pretty bright future. I think he could be really good for New Orleans. So I don't think we draft Shedeur. If he's still there, and I would have it in the back of my mind, like, okay, if we draft him, I'm not going to be as upset about this, but I still don't think we should. But in the front of my mind, I would be like, we do not need to do this. This would be dumb. We need to fill out what we already don't have on this roster, which is depth. We don't have any depth. That's why we sucked when we got hurt last year, because we don't have any depth. So we need to fill out some spots. Maybe get an edge to replace Cam Jordan, who's probably going to retire next year. I never know with Cam Jordan. He'll probably never retire as long as I don't know. But I think we need to go. Yeah, yeah. We need to go somewhere else with. We need to go somewhere else with that number 9 pick. I think we would need to draft either an edge, maybe an offensive lineman, a safety, and that's a conversation for another time. But no, I think if Shedeur did fall to us, probably shouldn't draft him. I just think you have too much going on with Derek Carr money-wise, and I think you have too much of a future with Spencer Rattler. Now, I do want to mention before, I was alluding to it earlier, right? The draft odds. Can I talk about that now? The draft odds.
Go ahead.
So the draft odds. We talked about the Giants had the number 2, and I was like, oh, I'll wait till the number 1. In per DraftKings, the number 1 team that's most inclined to pick Shedeur Sanders is the New Orleans Saints.
Oh, say it ain't so.
So that's 50 points above the New York Giants. So Saints are number 1 in betting odds to pick Shedeur Sanders. And then, like you mentioned, Mel Kiper has him going there. I've seen
Those
a couple of
odds,
other
Mel Kiper.
Yeah,
that's the odds.
I mean, but I've seen seen a couple of other analysts had him at 9. So it'll be interesting. I'm sure, like I mentioned, some Saints fans might be upset. Some Saints fans might be okay with it, but I just think we need to go somewhere else.